Investor, educator, and author Robert Kiyosaki has changed millions of lives all over the world. His book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has been on the New York Times bestseller list for over 5 years. We all know that the gap between the haves and have-nots is growing, and Social Security and Medicare are in a financial mess. And just affording to live is getting expensive. So how does a person get ahead financially? The answer is raising your financial IQ and having your money work for you. Here's Robert Kiyosaki with Rich Dad's Guide to Wealth.
Thank you. You're very kind, thank you. If I may see a show of hands, I want to ask how many people here were born prior to or before 1964? Please raise your hands. Good, thank you. And how many were born after 1964? Please raise your hands. Good, thank you. The baby boom generation and old guys like me, thank you, young people, for paying for my retirement. I really appreciate it. How many people in this room realize that Social Security and Medicare are kind of in trouble? Good. How many people are not really going to count on it for you? Good, thank you. That's a wise decision. How many people realize that corporate pensions, such as those of General Motors and United Airlines, are in trouble also? Good, thank you. So I want to thank PBS, first of all, for having the courage to have me come on and present Rich Dad's Guide to Wealth, very simply because what you will find out, there are many people in the financial services industry that do not want me to tell you what I'm about to tell you tonight. So, please be aware of that. Also, I want to caution you this. If some of you, what I may say tonight may threaten or challenge some of your beliefs about money. I mean, how many were taught, to save money, for example? Good. Tonight you're going to find out why that's a bad idea. So that's what this program is going to shake some of you and all this, so stay tuned. I promise if you stay tuned, at minimum your financial IQ will go up, you may learn to take more control of your money, and possibly survive the financial hurricane that's going to start brewing in the year 2008, the first of approximately 75 million baby boomers begin to retire. And how many people realize those baby boomers may not have enough money to retire on? Good, and that's why I thank you young people, because it'll be up to you to take care of us. So, before I begin, I'll ask a question. How many of you have already read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Thank you. Who has not yet read the book? Good, there's some of you. For those that haven't read the book, it's good to see some customers still out there and haven't read about my book. But anyway, for those that haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'll give you a little bit of my background. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a true story about my two dads. My real dad was the head of education for the state of Hawaii. Very smart, hardworking, great guy. It's a PhD, and he also ran for lieutenant governor of the state of Hawaii. So he's a great man. But I call him my poor dad very simply because even though he was a high-paid government official, no matter how much money he made, he was broke at the end of every month, and he ultimately died broke. So obviously money doesn't make you rich or poor. It's really education that does. And as you can tell, I'm fourth generation Japanese American, which means I don't speak Japanese, and I'm going to let you know that now. I barely speak English. My rich dad, on the other hand, was my best friend's father, and although he was a man who started with nothing, he ultimately became one of the richest men in Hawaii. So when you look at the white sands and the blue waters and the tall palm trees and the hula girls and the tall hotels right on Waikiki Beach, my rich dad's family owned some of the land under those hotels. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, this book here, is a very simple, true story of what two fathers told two sons, my best friend and I, about the subject of money starting at the age of 9. And I believe one of the reasons the book has been so successful, it is written for 9-year-olds. And it's simple enough for everybody to understand high finance, or more importantly, why the rich are getting richer. So that's basically, my background. I grew up in Hawaii, I was educated in New York, and spent 6 years in the Marine Corps, went to Vietnam twice and all that. And then I came back and started my business career. So, next question is this: how many people have read this book, Prophecy? Good, see, there's fewer of you have read this book. And while Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a popular book, I think this is a more important book. And the reason I think Prophecy is more important, it's about a very important year. And that year was 1974. And 1974 was a year that the U.S. swung from socialism to capitalism. A very important reason for 1974, it was when a program called ERISA came out, and ERISA stands for Employee Retirement Income Security Act, and when the government's worried about your security, you know you're in trouble. But also it led to a thing called the 401k back in the 90s, a very big change in the history of our world right now. So Prophecy came out in 2002. It was not a very popular book because it was writing about the failure of these things called 401ks and pension plans and the crash of Wall Street. So this was 2002, and then in 2005, Time magazine, just in October of 2005, came out with a front page cover saying the same thing I said here in Prophecy, that there has been a big ripoff of people's pensions. And Time magazine 3 years later in 2005 says a great retirement ripoff. Millions of Americans who retire with benefits are in for a nasty surprise. How corporations are picking people's pockets with the help of Congress. And that's been going on. That's why so many people are in trouble. And then one day later, the New York Times magazine came out saying the same thing Prophecy did. And it says, we regret to inform you that you no longer have a pension. And that's why USA Today came out with a statement that said, America's greatest fear is running out of money during retirement. And that's what this program is about, is why we have this problem right now and why so many people may be financially wiped out in the financial hurricane that's hitting us, and also hopefully what you can do about it so that you may be able to save your friends and family. Unfortunately, what I'm about to say tonight will not work for everybody. As you know, life is not fair, but at least you'll have an idea of what you might be able to do on this whole thing. So, going into it really quickly is the difference between, one of the reasons people are having trouble is they don't know the difference between, still can't spell that well, wealth and being rich. I'd like to explain really quickly that my rich dad taught me that wealth is measured in time and rich is measured in money. And really quickly, the difference here is this. A person who is, when you measure wealth, for example, let's say you have $10,000 in savings and your monthly expenses are $1,000 a month. That means you're 10 months wealthy. You will survive for 10 months. That's what it means. And the reason people are afraid of what's going to come up with them is they don't have enough wealth. They're afraid of running out of money during retirement. And what rich is trying to measure their lives in money. So what my rich dad taught me is don't worry about becoming rich, worry about becoming wealthy. And one of the reasons I was able to retire at the age of 47 was because I focused on being wealthy, not being rich. And that's a very big difference here. I thought I'd review something. I wrote a book called The Cash Flow Quadrant. I think it's one of the most important books for people who want to make changes in their lives. Because, as I said, the E stands for employee, S stands for self-employed or small business, B stands for big business like Bill Gates, and I stands for investor like Donald Trump or Warren Buffett. So, you know, my poor dad always said to me, son, go to school to get a what? Job. And he was programming me, and this is the word is program, me to be an employee. And, you know, when I talked to my mom, I said, you know, Dad, I don't want to be an employee. And my dad said, you must get a job. You must get a job. You got to have good education, good grades. Get your PhD. I went, oh, my goodness. And my mom says, don't argue with your dad. You know, if you want to be rich, go to school to become a doctor, you know, an S, specialist. And I said to my mom, there's only one problem, Mom. She says, what's that? Doctors are smart. She says, you have a good point there. You know, don't be a doctor. And I talked to my rich dad, and he says, you know, Robert, are you basically lazy and incompetent? I said, yeah. I said, good, you'll do well in business. And so this here is having other people work for you, like my advisors and things like that, and this is having money work for me. And they're very different educational paths. Another thing my rich dad says, again, going to words or vocabularies, employees always say the same words, whether they're the janitor or the president of the company or the CEO, employees all say the same word. I'm looking for a safe, secure job with benefits. That's their whole attitude. And their emotion is fear. Because they don't know how to survive in the real world. They need that. They have that fear driving them. And S, self-employed, their words are, if you want it done right, do it by yourself. So these guys, the problem with them is they may own a business, but they really own a job. They cannot quit because they don't trust other people. Their emotion is trust. And a business owner is like me. I want to have the smartest people around me as much as possible because then I don't have to do that much work. And as an I want to know how to have my money work hard for me so I don't have to work hard for money. So that's why I started off as an entrepreneur. And over here, this is the beauty of real estate. For every dollar I make here, I bring it down here, and my banker will give me $9 more as long as it's real estate. Tax-free money. So I'm getting ahead faster and faster and faster, very simply because for every dollar I have here, my banker's giving me $8 or $9 to get ahead financially. Does that make sense to you guys here? Tax-free money. And if I sell a property, I'm going to do it tax-free. That's why I'm getting rich. That's why education or financial education is so important. And I think it's really silly that our school systems keep saying to you, go to school to get a safe, secure what? Job, when jobs are being exported overseas so fast right now, it's ridiculous. I mean, I think it was J.P. Morgan. They just exported another 4,700 jobs, and these are smart guys with MBAs and all. They exported it to India. So that's what's happening in the world. But the reason 1974 is so important was because when ERISA, which now was a 401k, came out, it forced these people to become investors also. And that's why this change was such an important change here. So the other part going into it is this, is that there's three basic kinds of education. One is academic, the other one is professional. So you go to school to learn reading and writing. It's very, very important. I didn't do very well here, but I did graduate. And then professional is when you become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. And those are very important. But what I'm saying here is this: in this world, there's three types of education that's essential. I'm not saying these are not important. I'm saying they're not enough today. You need more. And the third type of education is education that's called financial education. So what this program is about is not so much about these. I said these are very important, but so is this one right now. And I've never understood why our school systems don't teach us anything about money. You ever wonder that yourself? Why? Because rich or poor, smart or not so smart, we're all going to use money. And it's because our school systems don't teach us much about money. That's the reason so many people are having problems today financially. And so I'm not blaming Wall Street or people who are financial advisors. I'm blaming our education system for not keeping up with the changes in time. So what happens because we don't have much financial education at school, we actually learn it from our families. So what happens with poor people is, you can look on the screen over here on the plasma, the poor people tell their kids that the government's going to take care of you. You should count on Social Security, and you should count on Medicare and things like this. What the middle class tells their kids is that they should have a good education, get a good high-paying job, a house, and a pension. What they are passive investors. A passive investor is somebody who turns their money over to somebody they hope and pray is an expert. The poor are non-investors. So the difference between a passive investor and an active investor, and what the rich teach their kids, what my rich dad taught me, was that I should be an entrepreneur like Bill Gates or Oprah, and I should be an active investor like Warren Buffett or Donald Trump and things like this. So in this program, what you'll be learning about is the difference between active investors and passive investors. A passive investor is a person always going around saying, I have $25,000, I have $25,000, what should I do with it? And the first thing I say, if I were you, I would keep your mouth shut, you know? Because if you go around telling people you have $25,000 and you're a moron, somebody will tell you what to do with that money, and they're going to tell you, give it to them. Does that make sense, you guys here? So that's what this program is about, is so that at least you can tell the difference between a good financial advisor and a bad one. Because if you don't know what you do with your money, somebody else does. So when we come back about financial education and the secret words that can change your life. Thank you.